Hey everybody, welcome to the Ground Effect podcast, where we dive into the heart of Formula One, bringing you the latest news, insider analysis, and sharing our thoughts on the motorsport we love. So come and join us, G and Mick, as we look forward to what promises to be an exciting 2025 Formula One season.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Ground Effect podcast. Thanks for joining us. On today's episode, we're going to look back at testing.
Yeah, so we've just had the 3 days of tests. Feels like an age ago already. But I just wanted to put one out there. How you doing, mate? Like I hear you've got a little bit of a cyclone that's about to dump on your head in about 24 hours.
On cyclone or hurricane watch, depending on where you are. Yeah, should be interesting. You wouldn't know it looking outside. Looks quite sunny, but yeah, it's supposed to be tomorrow night sometime. Meant to be making landfall, but we got more important things to talk about. F1 testing.
Yeah, well, the 3 days came and went pretty quickly. Overall, bit of a non-event with just the way things panned out. I mean, look, we're expecting that as we're still on the current regulations, so you sort of wouldn't expect a lot of failures or sort of any big change in the grid. It was nice to see the cars back out on track and, just the general excitement that the season is about to kick off.
Like you said, reliability, is expected. No engine rule changes this year. Unlike anything last year, those regulations tends to bring the field really, really close together. Some teams make decent steps forward. I think overall, judging from what I saw, I think it's still the big four out in front. It's quite interesting too. A couple of rain delays in the middle of the desert. Bit unexpected, but
probably a little bit surprising for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, this time of year out this way, we do get a little bit of rain. It's definitely not uncommon. That's just what they've got to deal with. Weather's unpredictable at times, as you know, sitting down there on the east coast of Australia. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you just touched on with the big four teams. I don't think too much has changed. I think we're going to sort of see much the same sort of field this year. I would say probably from testing, my sort of pick as far as the big improver was most likely, I would say Williams. Williams looked pretty good. But otherwise, everything looked stock standard, and I think we just get a continuation from last year. Yeah, no massive big talking points that I can sort of really think about. All the rookies performed relatively well. The reliability was pretty good across all teams. A few gremlins, of course. But yeah, to be honest, it was a bit of I don't want to be that Debbie Downer, but it was a little bit of a letdown as far as excitement.
yeah, definitely not most exciting or anticipated, I guess, testing that we've had. I think next year with the new regs, there's going to be a lot of hype, a lot of excitement around testing. Like you mentioned, no real major issues for anyone. A couple of spins here and there, some bodywork flying off, just the usual teething issues most teams had. And the biggest standout was just how reliable everyone is. Everyone clocking up over 300 laps. And again, I said it before, not too much is going to change, so...
Let's kick off with the back marker, which is Sauber. I don't think they've really made too much improvement. I mean, look, it's hard with testing because, lap times are not really indicative of, I guess, pace. Well, are they sandbagging? But at the end of the day, you're probably looking more at the consistency over longer runs, that type of thing. But it definitely looks like the winners at the back end. What did you make of them? I mean, the car looked incredibly stiff.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they did 153 laps. Quickest time was a 131.0 by Bortoleto. Again, can't read too much into that. Hulk did 180. Bortoleto did 174. Car looked really stiff. They did say that they were struggling a lot in the slow speed with the front end. And again, being a ground effect floor, the way they have to try and run the thing as low as possible. Bortoleto also a hydraulic leak in his final run. But apart from that, wasn't too much happening. They're just mainly looking for consistency, I think. They can just get to a consistent level. Yeah, looking forward to 2026, I would imagine.
Yeah, obviously with Audi coming in from 2026, that's really the big thing. I think realistically, that's what their eyes are looking towards. I think they're going to struggle this season by the looks of things. I feel it's just going to be a repeat of 2024 for them. Yeah, a lot of work for them to do, but obviously they have the excitement coming 2026 with Audi. Now, another team that wasn't looking super crash hot was Aston Martin.
I have to agree, they were sort of bottom dwellers when it came to the amount of laps and the timesheets. So they did a total of 306 laps. Quickest time of a 130.2 from Stroll. Alonso did 173. Stroll only did 133. He was feeling unwell on the final day, so that gave Alonso a bit of extra running. To be honest, probably isn't a bad thing. They were pretty low key. I think their biggest thing for this year's testing was drivability of the car, and I think they worked really hard on that. It's going to be same as last year, I think, with Aston Martin.
They're probably a little bit like Audi in respect to 2026. And I know we've covered this before, naturally, with Adrian Newey coming in, and then, what's his main focus? It's purely 2026, right? So maybe they just sort of take this year as, I mean, look, it's not that they're going to throw the year away, but I just feel like they're just more aligned to 2026. So I think, yeah, much the same by the looks of things. People, I don't think they're expecting too much, to be honest. Yeah, bit unspectacular, really. Aston Martin, nothing too exciting there.
Yeah. Be interesting, though, come the second half of the season to see if there's much improvement, what sort of upgrades they bring. Obviously, it's probably not going to be massive, but might even start to bring stuff for 2026 forward. Yeah, for me, that's probably the most interesting part. Are they going to get a bit of momentum towards the back end of the year, heading into 2026, when Great White Hype, Adrian Newey, will be in full effect?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it'll be interesting to see what he brings to 2025. That's for sure. But yeah, unspectacular. I mean, it looks like they're just going to continue on from the 2024 form. Very underwhelming. They generally have over the last few years started the season off relatively well and sort of dropped away during that back end. So maybe they can do it opposite this year. Maybe that's the plan. But yeah, muchness. Not too excited with where Aston Martin is currently. Now Haas, Ollie Behrman, obviously getting involved in his first test, and as you mentioned, they seem to have a little bit of problems with bodywork. So not ideal, but looks like an easy fix.
Yeah, so their biggest issue really was having trouble sealing the bodywork. I think that's something they had last year as well. I mean, testing-wise, probably wasn't too bad, man. They did the second most laps out of anyone, 457, 130.7 from Ocon. Ocon did 260 laps, Berman did 197. By the looks of it, they spent most of the time on high fuel load, and they were pretty solid, really. They were just racking up the laps.
It looks well because, I mean, they found a little bit of pace over the last few races of last year. So it'll be sort of interesting to see how they hit the ground running come Melbourne. Good to see reliability mechanically look great. Yeah, so they may be a little bit of, they could be a little bit of the surprise packet coming into Melbourne, all those first few races. Let's see if they've sort of kept that momentum up from sort of the back end of last year.
I mean, if they can carry that momentum, and then you bring Alpine and Williams and that middle pack, man, super, super tight.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see who can sort of take the lead of that middle pack because, yeah, it is extremely tight. Now, the Racing Bulls, I mean, they hit the track, loving the livery, as we've discussed previously. Interesting combination going forward with two really feisty drivers, which is going to be very exciting. What do you think? Car looked pretty good?
So what did they do? They did a total of 454 laps, quickest time of a 130.4 with Yuki. Ajar got some decent running in. He did 243 laps. Yuki did 211. Car looks amazing on track. Apparently, I was saying it's a little bit of a handful to drive. It does have the Red Bull gearbox, Red Bull rear end, which we'll talk about Red Bull later, but that's an issue they're having with the rear of the car. Yeah, I mean, they look okay. Pajar had that spin on day one, but that's expected. You've got to go out there and try and find the limit. That's what you're paid to do. Yeah, and I mean, on track, that car looked very similar to last year's Red Bull. When you do a side-by-side comparison, it looks very similar to last year's Red Bull.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Alpine, going to be interesting to see how Alpine plays out over the season, naturally with the Colapinto and Doohan saga, and it just seems to be a burning issue internally. But the car, I mean, I think Alpine would have been relatively happy. What do you think?
They've taken a pretty decent step forward. Again, following that momentum they sort of had towards the end of last year, and they sort of showed probably a bit more performance on the last day. They did a total of 405 laps with a 130.0. Again, doesn't mean much. Gasly 196 laps and Doohan got in a 209. For Doohan, he was very consistent, very clean, did what he needed to do. I guess you leave all the performance stuff maybe to Gasly. But yeah, they look pretty solid. Compared to where they were 12 months ago, they look in a much better position to start the season.
Yeah, it was good that they had the reliability, especially in Doohan's case, just to get the laps under his belt. Naturally, it's a big season coming up with the pressure of Colapinto down his neck. So, yeah, I mean, probably couldn't have gone any better for Doohan in a way that he just got a good amount of laps running before the opening race in Melbourne. But yeah, looking pretty solid. Again, a team that had a few good performances on the back end of last year, so I'm sure they'll be looking to build on that momentum coming forward into 2025. Now, Williams, for me, probably, look, they're not the surprise packet, in my opinion, but I just feel they were probably one of the best sort of teams outside the top four that made the step forward. I think they look pretty good, look pretty solid. Carlos was looking pretty fast in particular.
Yeah, for me, definitely probably the standout team out of all the teams. They made a decent, or looks to be a decent leap forward. So they did a total of 395 laps, 129.3, which I think the fastest time over the whole weekend, and that was set by Sainz. Carlos did 195 laps, while Alex did 200. They had a few minor little niggles, but nothing major. And I think their long run pace actually surprised quite a few people on the pit wall. So for me, they've definitely taken the biggest step forward. I think got that mix now of Vowles and Sainz. That's a winning combination right there. So I think those two have definitely made a massive difference. Fingers crossed that they can start off really well.
Yeah, I think as a team that is definitely brimming with positivity coming into 2025 after, sort of dismal last couple of years with just a lot of issues with drivers and those mechanics really put in the work rebuilding the car on a number of occasions. So, yeah, I think they just have there's just something about Williams, new title sponsor, Carlos there, good driver lineup with Albon. And they just seem to, yeah. There's just an aura of positivity around them. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to them performing in 2025.
They seem to be the team on the rise out of all the teams in the paddock. They just seem primed for. I think with what they've done so far in testing, it's hard to tell, obviously, but they should be definitely fighting consistently week in, week out for points.
Well, I mean, it'd be great to see Williams back up the front, winning a few races. I mean, I don't think they're going to win races this year, but just if they can carry the momentum forward, it would be really nice to see, a team that was a powerhouse only a few decades ago to sort of be back in the winner's circle, that's for sure. Now, moving on to Red Bull. By the looks of things, still looks like a bit of a tricky car to sort of hook up. Few little gremlins for Liam Lawson. Not Liam Lawson, his actual driving, but a few mechanical little problems there.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was a tricky testing for them this year. They still, by the looks of it, having a lot of troubles with the rear of that car. They're trying to iron that out. They did a total of 304 laps with a 125.5 from Max. Max did 155. Tim did 149. Yeah, still with the rear end issues from last year, so they're trying to work that out. According to Max, there's still lots of work to do. For Liam, there was a couple of teething issues. I think he had a water leak on day 2. That sort of interrupted his running. The only real big difference is for them is they spent really the best part of that final day working on setups rather than race runs.
Yeah, touching on the setup issues, it looked like they were sort of definitely chasing more stability. They did come out and say that they were making setup changes based on certain issues that they thought would help, and it just didn't go in the direction that they wanted it to. So there was probably like a little bit of time wasted there, sort of chasing. I think out of the big four, that they're the team that has the most to improve. And just knowing what they have behind them, you sort of expect that they'll come to Melbourne, on top of their game. But yeah, definitely a lot of work for them to do over the next week or so before that opening race.
And I think for them, it's they're just trying to get that car into a bigger window. Christian and Max have said last year's car was very peaky, so very up and down performance-wise, and the operating window for that car was very small, so they're just trying to widen that a bit so then they can be a bit more consistent. And like you said, proven track record.
Now on to Ferrari. Obviously, a lot of eyes on Ferrari with Lewis making his first official tests with the team. Sort of seemed like Ferrari sort of went off without much of a hitch. The car looked pretty good, looked pretty nimble, very similar to Mercedes, I guess, in that aspect, and lap times. Yeah, again, sort of like I think that they'll be happy with their tracking at the moment. I think there's a lot of positivity there around Ferrari. Again, it's one of those teams with you sort of feel that there's just a lot of ambition there with the driver change.
I agree. I think it'll be McLaren and Ferrari. I think are going to be your top two teams to start the season, especially with Charles. Lewis sort of comes to grips with that car. And I mean, yeah, they had no real issues. They did a combined 382 laps. Lewis did a 129.3. Lewis did 162 laps. Charles did 220. So they both got decent mileage. Car seems to be a decent step forward from last year, even with the new suspension geometry. They had a minor little issue on the last day with Lewis's run. But apart from that, very much McLaren-like, straight out of the box. I think McLaren and Ferrari are going to be your top two teams.
Yeah, that's the way things are looking. Maybe a few little surprises that spring up on us in Melbourne, but yeah, I mean, they look like they've got a race-winning car, that's for sure. Whether that's a championship-winning car, time will tell. Definitely things are looking pretty good. There was sort of like as you mentioned, no major issues for them, and it looks like they're hitting 2025 running strong. So on to Mercedes. Now, Mercedes, they look solid. It looks like the sort of car looked pretty good to me, and they got through a lot of running laps. How many laps did they get through over the weekend?
So they did a total of 458 laps. George did 232 of those, and Kimi did 226. So they were the leading lappers, I guess you would call them. So they definitely got the most mileage out of all the teams. A decent step forward. Doesn't look as snappy or edgy, I guess you could say, as it did last year. With that in mind, that they seem to believe that that's going to give them a better platform to build from the beginning of the season. Kimi did a good job, man. He mentioned in an interview after testing that, the biggest thing is just getting to grips with the car and getting to grips with the tyres. But he looked solid, and, you would expect George to be solid as well. I still think probably third or fourth at the moment, race between them and Red Bull.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting little battle there. But yeah, I think it's a really good thing for Kimi, just getting a car. Like if you're a rookie, I mean, ideally, the first thing you want is good reliability of the testing so you can get the laps in. And secondly, just a car that is well balanced. And I think that's what Mercedes is. So moving forward for Kimi, I think that's just bodes well for him for 2025. I'll be interesting to see how Mercedes goes in retrospect to how they were last year with, they had just in certain conditions, certain tracks, the car was hooked up. And then could be the complete opposite. So they just felt like as one of the big teams, they were sort of on it or off it. It was very, very digital in that aspect. So yeah, this year I think that will be the thing that they will be definitely trying to improve on. Just make sure that they're far more consistent over different conditions and over different tracks. But they are looking good for 2025, that's for sure. So we can't count them out. Now that just leaves us one team, and that is the 2024 Constructor Champions of McLaren. They look solid. I mean, they definitely look a class above everybody else. No real headlines from their point of view, except that they were quick. It looked like they had a very seamless 3 days of testing.
They're definitely straight out the box, carrying on from last year. A few little hidden tweaks to the car, not very noticeable. They were solid. They did the 381 laps with the 129.9 from Oscar. Norris did 186 of those laps. Oscar did 195. A long run pace, man, like you mentioned, but clearly a cut above everyone else. Were saying that a little bit fiddly in the rear end, but overall generally pretty quick. They had a little bit of drama on day one, but again, nothing major, and judging by the body language of both drivers, they seem pretty happy.
Yeah, they're in a good place. McLaren's in a good place. I mean, expected after last year, and just a continuation, really. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to guarantee a world championship, is it? So I mean, it's really going to come down to how consistent the teams are, strategy-wise, reliability-wise. So there's definitely a lot more than just having the quickest car outright. Looking good for McLaren, and I think they can definitely. I mean, they probably won't admit it, but I think they sort of go into the season again as constructor favourites. But how many races we got? 22 races this year, 23. I can't keep up with all the changes they've been making.
Oh, I think we mentioned it in one of the previous podcasts. This year, especially, I think they can start strong, which I think they will. I think they will be a cut above everyone else. It's definitely feel like this year is McLaren's year for both titles. And I think, McLaren have the early advantage.
Definitely got the early advantage, but as I mentioned before, it's a long season, and we've seen how teams can sort of start off strong and fade out, or go completely the opposite direction, where they start off extremely sort of sketchy and get the grips of the car and finish off strong. So
that's what makes it interesting, right? So we're going to see, as we get closer to the summer break, who's already moved on to 25, who's moved on to 26, and who's really fighting for 25. So that's why I think this first quarter of the season is really, really important for teams. Get on top early, get that little bit of an advantage, and then, like you said, they may tend to fade away as they focus towards 2026. So I think that first half, bit of that buffer in the championship, so then you kind of leaving second and third places kind of like, well, do we keep fighting for 2025 or do we focus on 2026? So I think that's going to be a real interesting pit lane dynamic.
Yeah, we're set up for a good season. Less than 2 weeks away.
We're going to be doing a preview, giving our horrible tips.
Definitely be giving our horrible tips. This is not gambling advice, and I sort of advise no one to take any of our previews or predictions seriously, because I'm sure they're probably going to be horrible at the end of the day. So definitely don't be doing that.
Sure to do your own research.
Do your own due diligence.
Yeah, don't listen to these two Muppets. Couple of Muppets, just a couple of F1 nerds.
Yeah, definitely don't listen to us.
Look, definitely looking forward to preview show. Some pit lane drama. I'm sure there'll definitely be a few things to talk about, and how we think the race will go, and who's going to be under the most pressure to perform.
Yep, looking forward to it, and hopefully that cyclone passes overhead with not too many dramas, and you're ready to go for next week.
Well, if you don't hear from me next week, you know why. The roof's come off.
All right, looking forward to next week.
Until then, catch you in the next one.
Later.